You're listening to the ToeTalks Podcast. Today, I'd like to introduce you to what ToeTalks is all about, who it's for, and who in the world is Dr. Toe. I'll also be offering a free ebook on how to boost your immune system and fight cold and viruses this season. Stick around. You're not going to want to miss it. Live free. Pursue health. Powerful living starts in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the very first episode of the ToeTalks Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Toe. What is the ToeTalks Podcast exactly about? Let's start with a 30,000-foot view. In a nutshell, it's about authenticity, like-mindedness, fellowship, friendship, bold love, walking through life together, and certainly about laughter. Now let's get into the specifics of the podcast. What are we going to do together on this ToeTalks podcast? We're going to critically think together, discuss research, and basically cut through the noise of the world. Now, how are we going to do that? By arming ourselves with the absolute truth concerning current and cultural issues and life challenges. You might be wondering, what exactly do you mean by absolute truth, Dr. Toe? Well, let's get into what this podcast will not be about. You'll never hear me say my truth or your truth. Truth is absolute. It's either true or not true. There's no in between. It lives outside of us and has nothing to do with your feelings or my feelings or wishes. The woman is either pregnant or she's not. The gun is either loaded or it's not. There's no in between. The gun isn't partially loaded or the woman is somewhat pregnant. No, it's either one or the other. It's either the truth or it's a lie. Truth is absolute. It doesn't matter what somebody thinks about it or how they feel about it. It stands on its own. So you'll never hear me say those words of, let me tell you my truth, or that's your truth. No, there's only one. And the other thing that you'll never see on this podcast is me being politically correct. You'll never see me put lipstick on a pig. I will always give you just the pig. That is exactly what I will be striving for. Next, the word misinformation. If you define what that word means, if you define what the word mis, M-I-S, in front of information means in the English language, it means wrong or not true. So information that you are telling me is either incorrect or correct. It's either the truth or a lie. There's no in between, and again, it has nothing to do with your feelings. If we're going to talk about information, we're going to talk about it either being true or not true. I will not say the word misinformation because that has been used so that people can criticize somebody's character or to criticize the truth in and of itself because they don't like what people are saying. So either way, you have to prove to me whether the information you're telling me is true or not true. And in the fog of war, which is incredibly thick right now, it's probably the thickest in history, I would be willing to wager. Of course, I haven't lived as long as others, but at least in my lifetime, the fog of war is incredibly thick. It is so very difficult to define or to decipher what is true and what is not true, especially when it comes to the mainstream media and what other people are saying. We have to filter everything and discover for ourselves what is truth. No room for junk science or opinions that are not based on evidence when it comes to truth and this podcast. Evidence and valid and reliable research are the foundations from which truth lives and breathes. You'll never see me giving an opinion that is solely opinion-based on this podcast. And if it is, I will tell you this is completely my opinion and there is nothing to back it. There is also no room for fear or a spirit of timidity on this podcast. Courage, strength, and encouragement will reign. Where there is fear, there is punishment. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So, who's this podcast for exactly? Well, it's for those who care about the truth, who want to live free, who want to see freedom in healthcare, pursue good health, learn to be a patient advocate for their own health. It's for those who are fighting cancer or immune compromised. It's for those who have the motto of first do no farm, heal thyself. Yes, I said farm with a F, P-H-A-R-M. There's a P in front of the harm. You are the rugged, authentic savvy. And if that's you, if I've just described you, then guess what? You're in the right place, my friend. And you are so welcome to be here. You're in the right place. This podcast is specifically built for you and me. So who are you exactly, Dr. Toe? I love Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Abundant life and forgiveness are found only in Him. He takes our disgrace and exchanges it for His grace and unconditional love. And when that happens, we become free. I'm a wife, mom, sister, and kindred spirited friend, author, college professor, and researcher. I hold a doctorate in physical therapy and have currently worked in the healthcare industry for over 2 decades, mainly in hospitals and outpatient orthopedic rehabilitation facilities. I've loved my job. Yes, I did say past tense. That's another story for another day. But it does bring me to my next point. Why this podcast was created. I wanted to speak truth, share knowledge, and find other like-minded people out there to make me not feel like I'm crazy. Can anybody relate to this? When you found somebody who was like-minded, understood what you're saying, and didn't look at you like you had 3 heads or call you a crazy person, you felt like you were home. Well, that's what I want this podcast to be for you and me. It needs to feel like home and that we can feel grounded here and understood. I like to give you a sneak peek and a little taste of what future podcast episodes are going to be based off of. COVID and caviar story, blood cancer, specifically CLL, and a new early treatment that might be beneficial that you won't see anywhere else. Firsthand stories of hospital ovens during COVID, how to avoid a sick bedside manner as a healthcare provider, and how to be an advocate for your health and the health of your loved ones. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about picking up your free ebook. It's called Kicking the Viral Load, and you can find it at www.drtoe.com. If you have a loved one that is immune compromised, or if you're immune compromised, or if you just want to learn how to protect yourself the best way you can against colds and viruses, you're going to want to look at this book. I think you might learn something that you didn't know. Some of the information is going to be very helpful in how to keep yourself healthy and fight off viruses when you do get them. Again, that's Kicking the Viral Load by Dr. Toe. www.drtoe.com ebook. It's my gift from me to you just for being here. So thanks. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please subscribe and welcome to the brand new ToeTalks Podcast. I'm so glad that you are here with me along on this journey. We have each other and we are not alone. Next episode on the ToeTalks Podcast, my COVID to caviar or ashes to beauty story. I think we all have one. Live free, pursue health, and breathe deep. Until next time, this is Dr. Toe signing off. Important disclaimer. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I am not a medical doctor and I do not diagnose, advise, or treat. This podcast is not intended for the substitute of advice from a personal physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. It is not intended to be used or relied upon for any diagnostic or treatment purposes, or to be used as a substitute for professional diagnosis, treatment, or conventional medical therapy. None of the statements made in this podcast have been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any healthcare decisions or for guidance about specific medical conditions. Listen responsibly.